And so what we're going to talk about today is being the law of attraction, being attraction, stillness, and in the flow in the new year. And the purpose is, we want to talk about the law of attraction. It's not just about manifesting our wish lists or making resolutions. It's about aligning ourselves with the grace of God. And when we understand the grace of God, we can still our minds. And when we still our minds, when we let it be, we can deepen our experience of God's grace. And when we deepen our experience of God's grace, we deepen our experience of everything that we actually wanted in the first place. So in the beginning of this new year, to quote Ernest Holmes, we have perfect peace because we know that the eternal voice sings and sings its song of infinite abundance, health, and happiness into every part of our being. And so that's what I want to have us really focus on in our time together is, a lot of us are making those resolutions, and sometimes we make them and we don't really believe in them, or we make them just because this is might as well start doing it. Maybe some of us, like me, are so happy to see 2016 over with. Talk about let it be. And we know in Science of Mind, we talk about, we are constantly placing these energetic seeds into the law of manifestation and watching them grow. And sometimes, we sit there and we survey our little garden and we go, I want to pick that weed and I want to let that one go. And so, sometimes the new year is a good time to kind of survey what we planted. This is not because of my earring. Our tech sound people have forbidden me to wear earrings, and I refuse to take them off. And sometimes we treat our, the garden of what we're growing, did we get what we wanted from Santa? And instead of actually relating to it as it's all really just an exercise. It's all an experience. We're just here to learn and to grow. So we're just in a curriculum right now. And sometimes, when I think about the mistakes that I make or am making or living in, and I can see myself in the reaction of what that feels like, it's so easy to just, pick fault at myself and say, oh, you should be doing better than that, or oh, you should be further ahead than that, or how could you do such and such, or how could you allow such and such? It's so easy to just blame ourselves and be critical. But if it were my child, I would have a whole different level of compassion. And sometimes we see our children, particularly when they're little, right? And, I remember, when my daughter was learning to walk, and she'd, toddle around and she'd fall down and, get her back up. And I was never like, how come you can't do that? I mean, really, you should be breakdancing by now. You're 2.5, I never treated her like that because it defied reason, because I understand that she's learning and she's growing. But when we as adults, are having the experience of learning and growing, sometimes we really do beat ourselves up a little bit, and we look at the garden of what we've created in our little garden of manifestation, and instead of just plucking what no longer works, or recognizing that we're having an experience, and that we're not sinners, we're not bad and wrong, we're just learning. And if we can have that compassion with ourselves, and just let it be, then it can shift a lot of our conversation about how we're starting the new year. It can shift the conversation about whether we're making resolutions or not. It can shift our conversation about whether we quote-unquote failed last year, right? Sometimes it's easier to look at the areas where we failed because it's easier to identify than to look at the places where we've had mild or even drastic growth. Because looking at the areas of drastic growth can even be confronting too. So it's kind of important for us to, as we're going into the new year, doing an assessment of what was what worked, what didn't work, like a SWOT analysis, what were your strengths, your weaknesses. Do that, but let's do it from a place of compassion for ourselves and from a space of just letting it be, letting whatever worked, let it be. And recognizing that we are just having new experience. And there's no need for us to judge ourselves, at least not judging ourselves harshly. One of the primary problems with the conversation about manifestation is that often we focus on the wrong thing. And I don't mean the wrong thing as in a judgment. I mean that we are people of spirit having a spirit. We are humans having a spiritual experience. And so often when we start talking about the law of manifestation or our resolutions, we start focusing on the material aspects. I said I was going to balance my checkbook, and one of the resolutions, somebody said they had better chance of balancing their checkbook on their nose than actually balancing it. Did I balance my checkbook, or did, those type of things, did I lose 30 pounds, or, those type of things. And sometimes we make our resolutions about those material things. But where we make the most impact, we know from our conversation about quantum physics, what we put our attention on is where we have our results, where we have the most energy. So the question is, when we start looking at when we start thinking about resolutions, is what is our attention on this coming year? Is it on the material things? And often our focus on the material things is a first layer. In everything, every spiritual principle, there are layers of truth, right? There's always a layer under it. That's why you see Jesus teaching in parables. There's always these different layers of truth under something. So if I am saying that I'm going to balance my checkbook and I fail every year, then what it's bringing up for us is an opportunity to really look at what's under that. Is there a fear of an abundance conversation? Is there, a discipline conversation? Is there a do I trust myself conversation? There's all these layers under the things that we have as a mundane resolution that probably is not about that mundane thing we've identified. It's probably all the layers of stuff under it. But when we get down to the layers under it, we remember over the past quarter we had been reading Joel Goldsmith, and a lot of that reading kept focusing and kept driving home the conversation about seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and its righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. And so often we are focused on things that are maybe we're not focused on the right thing. Maybe we are misdirected in what we're looking at. And so what's important for us is to clarify it. Abraham says you have sole ownership of your vision, and the universe will give you what you want within your vision. What happens with most people is that they muddy their vision with quote-unquote reality. Their vision becomes full of not only what they want, but what everyone else thinks about what they want too. Your work is to clarify and purify your vision so that the vibration you are offering can then be answered. So often, many people will say, oh, I feel like I should focus on this particular thing because that's what you're supposed to do, right? So Annette and I have been talking about working out, but I'm kind of embarrassed to go to the gym in January because everybody's going to the gym in January. And, I kind of want to hold off till February till everyone's, woulda, shoulda, couldas kind of wear out and the place kind of clears out a little bit. And I'm a little embarrassed to be identified with the people who didn't go for the last 6 months and show up in January. But the thing about that is that a vision of what I want, or is that a vision of what I feel that I should want? And so when we have that clarity on knowing what it is we want in our hearts, then that gives us the ability to even get to the point of starting to talk about manifestation. And the thing about that is that what we think about on the physical realm, that what we think is important, and this is a point we've been driving home over our times together, is what we think is important and heavy is nothing inside of the concept of the infinite nature of God. We look at, what's going to happen with the world. We look at these huge issues that we're facing politically and socially and economically. We look at things that are going on in our lives. And it is so easy to relate to the physical realm as if that's reality. And we've been making that point as we're closing our time with the Joe Goldsmith book, is we really have to know and focus not on the physical realm, not on the circumstances, but on the power of God. And focusing on the power of God as it lives inside of us as infinite source. Mother Teresa said, "Let us more and more insist on raising funds of love, of kindness, of understanding, of peace. Money will come if we seek first the kingdom of God. The rest will be given." Which is very similar to what we're saying. So often when, we have a situation that feels like a money problem, the first thing that we think about is, I need to go earn more money. I need to figure out a strategy on how I'm going to bring more money to me. When in actuality, the first place we go is our realization of God in us. And the thing is that whatever set of circumstances created that money problem will continue to exist in whatever form it takes for us if we don't change. And where we change is in our realization of God consciousness within us. So when I start looking at a money issue, I'm not looking at changing that problem, because that is not real. And if I put my attention on that, and I keep my attention on what is not real, I am going to continue to live in the swirl of non-reality and be powerless to change it. Because when we know that this kingdom of God, this infinite source of abundance, lives within us, and we focus on that, and we meditate on that, and not just God has all the money and all the, all the resources and all the funds in the world, but really just meditate on that infinite nature of the divine. Over and over and over and over. I'm not thinking about this money problem right now. I'm focusing on who God is in me. I am focusing on the nature, how mind-blowing is infinite. Like, what does infinite even begin to look like? And as we meditate on that and realize that there is no beginning and no end, when we realize inside of that space of the divine, there is no weapon. We quote that Bible scripture, "No weapon formed against me shall prosper." Sometimes I've heard that like I'm defending myself against a weapon that has credibility. When it's really saying there is nothing that could ever be created on any plane, on any level of energy, that can overcome the power of the divine in you. There is no set of circumstances. There is no set of who said what. There is no reality that can ever be more powerful than the power of God that lives within us right now. And it's not a head knowledge. It is what? Realization of that truth. It is the realization of that truth that expands its power in us. And as we become more and more attuned and knowing this realization, know that you know that you know that you know who God is, we realize that this is a shadow and it's an illusion. And it came up for no other reason than to have you explore deeper, to be your curriculum, to be your experience, to be this thing that you dealt with, that draws you closer and closer to the truth within you. That is the only power it has, is to compel you closer and deeper into your experience of the divine. It has no other function. If it were not, if you did not need that growth, that would not have come up. If it was not an area that you had absolute authority over, it would not have come up for you. Whatever you think it is, no matter how real it is, the only purpose for it, not that there's a good and evil, not that there's a devil that made you do it, right? The only purpose of that is to have us grow and deepen our experience of the divine. And when we know that, then we know that manifestation is not a struggle. It's about us being in the flow. Being in the flow. We start to relate to ourselves, as Ernest Holmes says, having the faith of God, not having faith in God. We start to remember who we are. We start to remember that everything that we ever needed is at our doorstep. It is within us. It's not up to us to manifest things and to have them come into being as if they were from somewhere and you're bringing them in. We're allowing, we're in the flow. So when we start talking about New Year's resolutions, what we're just doing is saying who we are, but we may have some work to do around it. But even in that, we still say, let it be. There's a story about a milkmaid. She was walking to the market with a milk pot on her head. And as she's walking to the marketplace, she's thinking about she's going to sell the milk and she's going to buy some eggs. And with the eggs, their chickens are going to grow from the eggs, and she's going to sell the chickens. And she's going to buy herself a beautiful dress and an outfit, and everyone's going to say how wonderful she is, and she's just imagining herself getting the compliments, and she tosses her hair and spills the milk. And there go all her dreams, right? And so many times we're like the milkmaid. Like we get all into the fantasy of what we think we're creating, and we miss the point. And sometimes we can do that at this time of the year with our resolutions, and sometimes we can do that even on things that we think are negative, like we want to get rid of something. And we start getting into the fantasy of it as if it's reality, and we start strategizing, and we start planning, and we start, creating, a 10-point strategized plan on how we're going to address this particular situation. And we don't just do that with, money situations. We do that with relationships. We do that with people. We do that on jobs. We do that on projects. We're going to strategize it. But often when we're strategizing, we're missing the point. We're like these two frogs. This story I read, these two frogs fell into a bottle of cream. And the first frog says, we're not going to make it, we're not going to make it. And the second frog's, no, just keep kicking, just keep kicking. I'm getting tired, I can't make it. The other frog says, the other one's like, no, just don't give up, just keep kicking, right? So of course the other one gives up, and it drowns in the bottle of cream, because it was tired and it was just done, right? Well, the other frog kept kicking and kicking and kicking, and finally, that cream turned to butter, and he hopped on out. So often we think that our struggling, though, makes us the surviving frog. We think if we just keep kicking, if we just keep struggling, if we just keep at it, that we're going to make it. But the difference between the two frogs isn't that one kept kicking and one didn't. The difference is that one frog had the clarity of mind of knowing what needed to be done. And so often when we quiet our minds and allow Spirit to tell us what needs to be done, we can kick and kick and kick all we want. But if we don't have the clarity, and we don't have the vision, and we're not connected to that infinite source of wisdom within us, we might just get tired and give up and drown. But if we have the vision that we can only attain by being quiet, that we can only attain by being in that stillness, that we only attain by letting it be, then we have the clarity that comes from the divine that tells us what we need to do. That tells us, do I sit here and float? Do I do the backstroke? Do I kick and make butter? What do I do? And so often we react. We react. Something happens, we react. Something doesn't happen, we react. Something upsets us, we react. We're in this reactive mode to every aspect of our lives. And sometimes the most important thing we can do is let it be. Let the sediment settle. Just like, we talked about it and before. You allow the settlement in the water to settle so that the light can flow through and we have that clarity. And when we have that clarity, it becomes not about fighting the sediment. We're no longer fighting for something or fighting against something. We're no longer trying to manifest from a space of lack. We're no longer trying to fix what's broken in us and others in the world. We start being this space of healing that allows the power of God to show through. And that becomes more miraculous than anything we could have ever imagined. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, says the highest attitude of mind from which all else springs is one of perfect calm and absolute trust in the Spirit. Be still and know that I am God. He said, this is the crux of the whole matter. Infinite and immutable as the law is, ever present and available as it must be, the potential possibility of all human probability, it must flow through us in order to manifest for us. So when we're the flow, the mind is free to turn to the infinite source of our being. And as we clear away our attachment to creating more in the physical realm, the realm of illusion, we become more capable of becoming that channel of God. So sometimes when we think about this issue that we want to address, sometimes it's when we let it be and we focus and just let it settle. And we instead focus our realization of God within us. We have that clarity that the kicking frog had. And we become the channel of the divine. And we stop being in the swirl, and we start being the answer. And we start being divinely inspired. One of the things I used to tell Annette and I create our day every many mornings on the way to work. And I remember one time I was creating that I was such a channel of the divine that I had superpowers. And I was saying that I would see what I needed to see and hear what I needed to hear, that I would know what I needed to know, that if I wrote any legal briefs or any documents or memos, that it would be supercharged, that whatever I got done would be done in this perfect timing. And that when I talked with people, that there would be no ego, that there would just be connection of God to God. And that my communications would be healing, not just for me, but for everyone around me. I had superpowers. I even created that I could bend time, because I had a lot to do in that particular job. But when the Spirit is flowing inside of you and you have something to do, and you're just in the flow, you ever notice how sometimes something will just flow, and you think, oh, it's going to take me 3 hours and 20 minutes, you got it done brilliantly? It's one of those things. That's God in you. And we realize that we are God within us. It is God within me that doeth the work. It stops being about striving to prove something to myself, striving to prove something to somebody else, trying to be better than someone else, trying to do better than I did last time. trying to, create something from the tangible. And when I give all of that up, and I'm just God's channel, I'm God's pencil, so let's write something really cool. And when I'm that, then I am who I really am. Because God coming through me is unique and powerful and magical and the one of a kind. Nobody's going to express God quite like I do. So we become supercharged, and we do become superheroes, because nobody can be who quite we can be. And so in every area that we care about, we have this opportunity to be the channel, to be the flow, to be the divine. The quote that Olivia read this morning, "The finite alone has wrought and suffered. The infinite lies stretched in smiling repose." I love that. God is always God. No matter what our emotional storm, what our objective situation may be, there's always a something hidden in the inner being that has never been violated. We may stumble, but always there is that eternal voice, forever whispering in our ear that thing which causes the eternal quest, that thing that forever sings and sings. So we become our genius selves, because nothing could ever have reduced us. Nothing could ever minimize who we really are. The only thing that could possibly do that is our belief that something could. And that's a thought, and it can be changed, right? So when we allow Spirit to work through us, seeking first that kingdom of heaven within us, we have the ability to create more money, more health, more relationships, more beauty, more love, and more prosperity, more power of God to the world, more love. We have the ability to do that on a level that we never did before, just by letting it be and being in the flow. So when we give up trying to do it right, we allow heaven to operate as us, as through us. We actually create heaven in our lives. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So let's take that on. Let's take that on in our lives. Is focusing on the infinite and focusing on being that clear channel and knowing that whatever needs to be healed, whatever's coming up, is coming up to be healed. But there is no such thing as you not being up to it. And you are already a conqueror. So let's go into our meditation. Let's just take a moment and feel our bodies, feel our breath, feel it easing in and out on its own volition. You don't have to will your breath. It just comes. It is your body of life regenerating itself, bringing in prana energy of life that nourishes and sustains your physical being. Just feel your weight on the chair. Feel the energy vibration coursing through your body. You can feel the vibration of your cells, of the flow of your blood through your body. Just the physicality And we know that every part of your physical body has within it cells, and within the cells are atoms, and in the atoms are neutrons and electrons, and then there's empty space. We can think of that empty space in our bodies as the space above our heads, the space of the universe. And we know that there is no place where God cannot be. So every part of our being is infused with the divine life spirit. It is light. It is the highest vibration. It is every vibration of light. You are a being of profound beauty, of profound light. And you can just see that light emanating from every part of you. It is the divine essence. And just sit in this glow of divine goodness. You are a being of light. Inside that space of light, we meditate on that there is no end and no beginning to that light. That as far as you can imagine, that light travels, is connected with other light. And then we realize there is nothing but that. And we are inextricably a part of the oneness of the light of God. Just sit in that knowing. You are a being of divine intelligence. You are God's light right now. Every part of you is one with God, one with all. This is unlimited source. Absolutely anything you want to create in this space, you can create and bring it into the physical. You are in a space of deepening and deepening realization of connection and oneness. And we bring our attention to the center of our chest. And we feel love, profound, beautiful love. And you feel your heart open. that space of love, we experience gratitude. So grateful for all the goodness. So grateful for the love. So grateful for this experience of infinite love, infinite divine power. So grateful to be in this realm of spirit. Just sit in that. So grateful that all is well in my world, that I am love, that I am light, I am God's plan. I am divinely blessed. And everything that I need is coming to me in perfect timing. Everything that appears as a need is only an illusion. And it is swallowed up and completely eclipsed inside of the unlimited flow of the divine source. I am fueled with strength beyond my wildest imagination. I have unlimited strength in my spirit, in my body, in every aspect of my life. It is all God, and it is all good. And I know that this sweet, sweet spirit that lives in this place, lives in my heart and breathes me in this flow of beauty, in this flow of power, in this flow of love. It is good. I am filled with joy. I'm filled with joy knowing all of this is so. And I can just be in the divine bliss, knowing that I am the faith of God. I am this gratitude. So thankful. So blessed. It is so perfect. As we release this into the law of manifestation, knowing that what I have planted, what you have planted, is even now manifesting. It is even now manifesting layer after layer and generation after generation of good in my life and the lives of people around me. It is only good. I know that the Creator has no greater joy than giving me the keys to the kingdom. And it is done. It is good. I release it. And so it is.